He might not be from Krypton, but he's heads above the rest. His knowledge can't be questioned. You can put it to the test. So if you want to hear the truth and have nowhere else to go, I'll give you the solution. Just tune into his show and just kneel before Zod. Kneel before Zod. Kneel before Zod. Kneel before Zod.
And welcome everybody back to the channel. But today I'm not going to say my usual earth-breaking, ground-shaking, never media shell money-taking kind of saying. Today I'm going to break character. Today I am not coming to you as the personality of General Zod. Today, actually, I am coming to you as Lee Cole IV. Gasp! Name drop. Yes. Today I'm coming as myself, and there's a specific reason why I've chosen to drop my Monica for today, and why I'm doing this not as my persona, but as who I am outside of YouTube. Because this story particularly is very disheartening. This is a prime example of the shadiest form of human being. This was so disturbing, I contemplated doing a stream sooner than today, but I did have family and personal things going on. That's why I did not do late night talks last night. So before I say hi to everyone, kind of just want to get that stuff out of the way, because today is personal. The hat is off. This is going to be a reaction, not as the general, but as a person who has gone through the types of things that will be discussed today, and who is absolutely shocked and appalled by one person's deception. Now, if you guys have been following me, you guys know I've been covering the Colleen Ballinger situation in painstakingly detailed, going over her book, her documents, all of the stuff, going over various podcasts and things like that. But today I'm doing something different. I don't normally do reaction videos. I'm not, like, I do react to articles and things like that, but I haven't watched a video in quite some time since I started this channel and gave you guys my full reaction. A lot of the stuff I'll play is even new to me. I actually stopped it so everybody could watch along with me and get my actual live reaction. I did watch some of the video prepping for this, but I have not completed it because it's a 3-hour video. I might break this up into sections because it's so long, and it is my day off with the beautiful bitchy, and I do have things to do. So I might break this into sections, maybe do an hour a piece until I get through the full video. But I think it's important because this highlights somebody using and abusing and claiming to be a victim, when in fact they may not be a victim. Now, a couple of things before I get started to keep in mind here. First of all, I wanted to give credit to the creator of this video, which is Swoop. I put all of the information to her channel and various links and things like that in the description. Go check out the channel. Awesome content creator. Books by Jay actually was the one who suggested me watching their videos. She has done very deep dive, like investigative, reportive type stuff, which I am grateful for, because that is like that takes team and whatnot, more than the normal raccoon resources I have. There's Phil Sessions, a bunch of other people who've been covering this, and even Ethan at the H3 podcast. So I wanted to give the proper credits to everybody who's been working on this. And yes, this sounds more professional than I normally do, but that's because this topic is a bit more serious. This is not my goofball antics. This is not me ripping on someone. And that's why I chose to do this just with me by myself, because this is a bit personal to me. Um, I've gone through some of this. Now, a couple of things to get out of the way once again before I get started with saying hi to everyone. I do apologize. I'll get to everyone in the comments, but first off, couple of warnings here. There is going to be stuff talked about that might be a little bit disheartening, may trigger you. So, trigger warning, all of that stuff. There is mention of different forms of abuse, victim blaming, pretending to be a victim, uh, all sorts of crazy stuff. Okay. Uh, Number two, um, this is going to be a more somber kind of stream. It's going to be a bit more serious, because the issue that I'm talking about here is serious and deserves respect and dignity and decorum when discussing what we're going to talk about here today, because it is quite a serious topic that I'm looking to tackle. So, if you guys are down with all of that, let me say hi to everyone, and then I'll give you an outline of what we are going to be watching today, and why I felt this part of it is just as important as everything else. And another little side note, the this person who did this is not a reflection on people like Adam McIntyre and everybody else who's come forward in this situation. This is a bad actor amongst people who had legitimately proven claims backed up with facts and uh, tons of research going into their claims. So I would like to say that this is an example of just because there is one bad actor amongst the group does not make the claim any less true and does not discredit the stories of the other people who are involved or the validity of their evidence that they have presented, which has been proven to be true based upon the response given by Colleen Bollinger. This does prove, however, I like to call it the Amber Heard theory, where there is that person who wants to capitalize and try to take the recognition and put it on themselves. And to me, this is one of the worst things to do, because this hurts other victims who are going through this situation, and it starts to discredit other stories by proxy. It is dangerous, it is manipulative, and quite honestly, this person who's done this should be ashamed of themselves, because this is this is just really bad. It's really fucking bad. That's the best way I could put it. Um, you should never try to ride the coattails of victimhood. You should never try to place yourself above other victims. No one victim is worse than the other. Okay, it's in the word. People who have gone through these kinds of things, um, they deserve respect and compassion for their story and for what has happened to them. And everybody should be focused on when coming to this type of situation. And there should be skepticism in when you're listening to what's being said. But when proof and evidence is presented and there's not a reasonable doubt, then they should be taken seriously. And people like this, they kind of diminish the seriousness of the whole situation. So, with that very vague, long winded intro, let me get to the people in the chat. We have Kremel, what's up, man? Good to see you. We have Planet Q's Queen. KH, how you doing? Good to see you. Christine, top of the morning to you. Sean Bean, what's up? Uh, McGee, how are you? And Sean B, how are you doing? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today is going to be a very shocking day. And when I caught this, the interesting part about the situation, if you guys don't know, there's been a particular person at the center of this drama. I'd say one of the core people, or made themselves, it appears to be one of the core people. Johnny Silvestri has been one of the people spearheading the charge, right, with Cody and a bunch of other people in bringing these allegations to life. However, it would appear that Johnny has been less than honest with his accounts. There's some holes in his story. And in fact, there may be even more sinister and vile things in his past that are being brought out to light. Johnny may in fact have done his own share of terrible shit. He may in fact have his own victims. Now, I'd like to clarify before I get started. Some of this is allegedly, some of this is proof. Swoop will go over that in our video when we watch it, but it's very important to put that into perspective because some of it falls under allegedly, some of it is just factually proven. And we're going to suss out what is true and what is not. But the thing that really grinds my gears about this situation is that in several points I've used some of his statements and referenced only to find out that it might have been a half truth. That this person was trying to put the spotlight on themselves, was calling victim stories, basically downplaying them, and was weaponizing a documentary meant to help people. He was weaponizing it as a way to essentially put themselves on a pedestal, to downplay other victims, boost his standing, so to speak. Why? No clue. But to me, as bad as Colleen is, this is in that same ballpark. This is to take somebody else's stories and to try to elevate your own, to use somebody's platform who is very gracious enough to interview you, to tell your story, and to completely fucking fabricate the truth and lie is disgusting. It's appalling. And it's why I'm doing this in a more professional manner. It's why I'm looking at this from a more professional standpoint. Because this agitates me in a different way. This isn't my typical I want to rant. It's disappointing and it's shocking to see somebody actually try to manipulate a situation to their own gain. I think there's something really slimy and disgusting about that. We saw it with Amber Heard and how she tried to manipulate the situation, which is why I'm dubbing this new sort of victim blaming, shaming, reversal. I'm going to dub it the Amber Heard effect because that's what I consider it. It's exactly what Amber Heard did. She tried to reverse the role of abuser and victim. And much like her, the truth will come out when you are being interviewed by national journalists, like big time, right? If you're on bigger platforms, when people research, your lies will be exposed. And it's just a matter of time before the truth comes out. So, with that being said, let's check out this video. It's a bit long. I'm going to start at the beginning and we're just going to kind of react together to the different truths that have come out. And once again, if you have not checked out Swoops' channel, she also does other great documentary kind of things. She's been doing this for a while. She is very fact-based. She does a very good job researching and finding out all sorts of stuff. I skipped past the intro. It was just a recap of everything going on. But this is the meat and bones. This is the genesis. And this is how the person who started this documentary has been dragged into becoming part of the story. And it's a really crazy turn of events. that I felt needed to be in my own series that I've been creating on this, because this is a big turning point, and this opens a whole new Pandora's box of different questions that are now on Johnny and the validity of his claims and what's true and what's not. So, welcome. Uh, it's Courtney's Fellowship of Oddballs. Hello, good to see you here. So let's dive into this, and I'll be pausing through to give my thoughts and things like that. But yeah, let's check this out.
We will be discussing themes of grooming, abuse, gaslighting, manipulation of minors, exploitation, CSA, and DV. Sensitive words and images will be censored per usual, but I just want you to have a heads up. Now, I will be addressing things and making statements that are alleged, as well as presenting verified and corroborating evidence. All opinions or commentary shared today are alleged, and they are heavily educated opinions based on extensive research that neither I nor my team would be sharing if we didn't thoroughly believe them to be accurate. If you want to fact check, please do. I always welcome that. I am not here to tell you what your opinion should be. I'm just providing the research and testimonials that we have pulled from our investigation, and you can do with this information what you will to formulate your own research. As always, y'all know, please do not spread any hate or harass anyone ever. My team and I are presenting all of this with the intent to help people heal and hopefully take some accountability. Please form your own opinion, and I would love to hear it in the comments. And after this, I will be making a personal donation in Johnny Silvestri's name to RAIN, an organization devoted to protecting survivors. Let's begin.
So,
You probably guessed that this is going to be a slight departure as far as my normal documentaries go. There won't be any Petty University segments today, my apologies, but I'm going to discuss in full transparency the moral conundrum this part of the story has put me in. The information I am about to share in no way diminishes the very real, valid, heartbreaking stories that Adam, Becky, Alex, Oliver, Ella, and others have shared. Not only
just to be clear, and I hope the sound quality gets better. I don't know if it's on my end. I turned it down a little bit, but yeah. So these are the people who have come forward, and this story in particular, in no rate really validates their claims. It's just kind of crazy to me that amongst all of this, and this is my issue with what this particular person did, is that a lot of people have come forward, and um, this really does a disservice to some pretty horrible accusations um, that have been factually true. And as we'll see, there's even a couple of times in this interview with Johnny where he says things, and he he uh he has some gaps as far as providing information. Now, at the time, I watched the other episodes of this documentary. If you want to know more really in-depth stuff as far as these victims go, definitely check out the first two parts of this documentary. It's very in-depth. It's pretty long, just a heads up, just like this one, which is why I'm saying I'm probably going to break this into hour sections, because quite honestly, 3 hours is a long time, almost four. And Bitchy will be back soon. So, um, you know, I got things to do. But um this is like really crazy, the fact that um these people have gone through such a horrific thing. This lady needs to be punished for what she's done. And with people like Johnny, it it really gives Colleen a defense that some of these people might not be telling the truth or whatever else. And if it does go to court, when you're dealing with a human element, even just planting the seeds of doubt is a very powerful tool. Now, Amber Heard couldn't do it because she's just a nasty, vile person and is very narcissistic, and there's just no way to hide her contempt for people. But Colleen is good, very good, at providing this friendly, kid orientated kind of person her narcissism only comes out to people she knows that can see she's full of crap. But I can very much picture her being able to manipulate the justice system, all because of this asshole making claims that may or may not be true now. It's a very dangerous thing. And this sickens me very much because of that fact. And good night, Christine. Have a wonderful evening or morning, midday. I don't know.
Have they provided a level of transparency that I am in awe of, but their stories have been consistent and verified. What I have to share today further highlights how resilient Adam, Becky, Alex, Oliver, and Ella have been, and underscores the need to continue to focus the attention on them and not be swayed by those who seek to manipulate the truth. What I'm about to say, I take very seriously. From what my team and I have discovered, we have found that Johnny Silvestri has lied to me, appears to have falsified evidence, withheld information from all of you that changes the context of what he has alleged, and has participated in profoundly disturbing and inappropriate group chats with minors, contents of which shook me to my core, unlike anything I've covered on my platform. I'm talking about group chats that involved alcohol, SEO discussions, and legitimate grooming. It is our belief that we may be on the verge of uncovering a dark underground grooming ring, and Johnny, allegedly, was a part of this, all while lying about his level of participation. He has also downloaded Trisha Paytas's nude photos as an adult, unprovoked, and sent them in text as well, something that he admitted for the first time in my interview. In our opinion, he has intentionally exploited the stories of other victims without their consent when they repeatedly asked him not to, and has allegedly been characterizing people as victims for his own benefit who not only do not think of themselves as victims, but have told me on the record that Johnny Silvestri scares them. He's even scared me. Multiple people have come forward to say this, and you will hear from them today. I found myself
Like, first off, wow. Okay. A ring of grooming that might, that like, Colleen. Okay, so Colleen has done some pretty heinous stuff. Grooming in any faction is just disgusting. I can't give you my unsolicited opinion of what should happen to these people, but like the level of I don't even know exactly what to say. Like in my head, it's like, holy shit. You claim to be an ally to these people who are hurting, who have been traumatized and are trying to get past the worst moment of their life, knowing full well you not only participated, but might be involved yourself into something twice as worse. But where the narcissism comes in is that knowing this could come to life, given the scope and the magnitude and how big this story has become, you still have the balls to talk to a person who thoroughly researches everything that's said, bring their platform into it, use them in a sense for your own ego and gain. That is some horrendous shit. Like, at first, when looking at the stuff Johnny was presented and things like that, I even said, despite what was in the past that was said about what he did on the tour, you could chalk it up to him being a minor or whatever. Everybody was fooled. But to know that, in fact, you not only knew what was going on, but you were participating in your own sick shit is on a whole new level of fucked up. And I'm just being perfectly blunt here because, wow. Just wow. It's hard to try to process things because I normally take a day or two, but I don't write scripts. This is not scripted. This is not even thought out. This is just my initial reaction. And the first reaction that comes to my mind is, holy shit. That's bad. That is really bad. And throughout this, it's going to start off with the way he presents himself, the way he sees these people who are victims. And it's important to focus on what's coming up because I only got to the interview part and then the rest is brand new to me. But just getting an idea of how I was going to do this stream, it's like, wow, it's very telling. So let's continue.
In a position where I was trying to investigate the allegations of a grown-ass man, Johnny Silvestri, who quite literally many times victim-shamed and victim-blamed domestic survivors publicly while perpetuating the myth of mutual abuse. And he continued the victim blaming to my face in our interview.
He actively chose to remain in this relationship. He had so many outs. He didn't propose for like 9 years. Why did you enter a marriage that was so toxic if you knew it was so bad? You must have wanted something out of it and it bit you in the ass. He fucked around and found out, and now he's just upset about it.
I have survived brutal DV. He knows that. Saying a survivor of domestic around and found out because they didn't leave the relationship is vile. And yet I still try to extend grace, and I'm still trying to do it to this day. Now, for brief context about me, as this will apply later, I am a survivor of being textbook groomed as a child by two men vastly older than me, which resulted in me being raped and repeatedly sexually abused for years. And as valid as I am not a perfect victim. There's no such thing. But this isn't about John being perfect either. As I discovered, this is about him manipulating the public on what a victim even is. And that's not fair to Adam, Becky, Alex, Ella, Oliver, and countless other victims, and I will keep highlighting them. Johnny's actions do not invalidate them, but his actions hurt them, and it breaks my heart. And on top of that, according to testimony provided by Adam, Johnny Silvestri.
So to cover a first thing, because I just don't like to just sit here and watch all straight through. The first thing is, like, here's the thing. To blame somebody, and I'm going to go full screen for this for a second because this really upsets me. When you enter a relationship with someone and you love someone and things happen, to call somebody that, and look, I'm not the biggest fan of Colleen's ex-husband, but to an extent, I can see what had happened, that there were some feelings there, and that there is a sense of him as well being a victim before the new person she got with. Saying that somebody deserves what they get in that kind of a situation where there's abuse of any kind involved is very cold and callous thing to say. Look, I've said some cold shit here in the Phantom Zone, in particular about Alec Baldwin. I do not actually mean what I say. A lot of it is I'm a passionate person. I would never want, in all seriousness, I would never want anything bad to happen to somebody just because that's bad karma. I just don't believe in it. It really tells about someone who can look with a Joker smile on their face, like a wide ass smile, and say that this person has it coming to them because they didn't marry the other person. First of all, marriage is not a band-aid. Just like having a kid with someone who abuses you is not a band-aid. It does not fix the situation. To say such an asinine statement and be dead serious and mean it and to laugh afterwards, that's a huge red flag. Or at the very least, very telling about their views on what they consider abuse to be. Like, it's really disturbing, the glee when he thinks about how this person was hurt. And look, her ex-husband is implicated in his own stuff. It does not take away from the things that he might have participated in, might or might not have, it's alleged. But that's not to say that he deserves to be abused. That is just really messed up. And the more we get into this, the more you'll see, I think there's more of an element that Johnny wanted something that he did not want to reciprocate. That's the feelings I get from this. Now, that's my own conjecture. I have no proof, just what I'm getting, but it's pretty shocking to hear somebody say that. Especially when if you've gone through something as horrendous as abuse or any of those kinds of situations, then you should have the most compassion about somebody who is going through trauma or hurt. Like, it's kind of a disgusting statement. It really is. Um, uh, my effing God, there is no such thing as mutual abuse. Yeah, it's really telling to the kind of mindset he has about this. It's very disgusting.
From what we've seen, has knowingly tried to manipulate multiple content creators like H3, Ethan and Ela, and Olivia, Lily, and Jesse, and me, in an attempt to use my platform to center a false narrative that he is telling the truth when it could not be any further from it. And throughout all of this discovery, my team and I keep coming back to one simple question. Why? Why do this? Why lie? Why manipulate people's stories to the point that they are afraid of you? Why lie to all of the victims? We already saw what Cody Tyler did to Adam. It was awful. Did Colleen Ballinger manipulate him to do this? I don't know. Is her web so insidious that he's now doing her dirty work by harming victims? And why manipulate me to where I now have to talk about this because he knows that I will not lie for him?
And that, in fact, is the biggest question that I'm curious about. Why lie? And this is just a theory of mine based upon what I'm hearing. I don't know. Could totally be bullshit. But my theory is the only person who would do something so heinous as to manipulate a situation like this and try to go after these victims and things like that is if you yourself are involved in something that you don't want other people to focus on. And I see this a lot, especially in the Hollywood circles. But here's the thing, the more you try to manipulate the facts and make yourself look good, the more people will dig into who you are. And that just uncovers more stuff. So, in a sense, when people try to manipulate information or they try to distort facts and they get caught, they get called out on that. And it draws more attention to themselves, which causes more digging, which causes more people to find out things about them that they don't want found out. So I believe this whole attempt was because he was being talked about as someone involved in this. And instead of just getting enough information to get himself out of this Colleen thing, he threw himself in head first. And not only threw himself in head first, but tried to make his claim seem more substantial than anybody else's, which within itself is a very high form of narcissism. So this is crazy.
Which leads me to the final shocking revelation I needed to address before breaking down just how utterly disturbing Johnny Silvestri's web of lies appears to be. It's the part where I became a part of this story. Johnny Silvestri has been trying to weaponize my 6-hour interview with him that's on the record. He's doing it in private to other victims of the story. His story is, and I'm not making this up, more important than the other victims of Colleen Ballinger's story. Source, Adam McIntyre.
It just, everything he did was a slap in the face, and it was always something he could do better. Like, as recently as when you did your interview with him, like, he, on social media, was painting it in a way that the Reddit on all these different forums were picking up on the fact that he was saying that, well, Swip wanted to talk to him for 6 hours. I was on Twitch one day and people were like, Adam, how long were you speaking to Swip for? And I was like, only 45 minutes or something like that. And people were like, whoa. And I was like, what do you mean? And they were like, is that all? And I was like, well, yeah, I got asked questions and I answered them and it was 45 minutes. And they were like, oh, well, Johnny's story is definitely bigger because Johnny is saying how he was on for 6 hours and Swip wants to do more. It was framed to us like we are the inferior people in this story because you wanted to speak to Johnny for so long. There's one other person who I had a lengthy conversation with, and I know they'll never go on the record with it, but we had a call where we were like, it's almost like Swip is being weaponized against us, that like Swip didn't want to speak to us for 6 hours because we weren't as important, because that was how it was phrased. So I think it's just that he is better than us in every single way.
Let me speak to that right now.
Wow. So that, you know, being on YouTube, it's a crazy thing. I've done my fair share of interviews. Now, granted, when I've interviewed somebody, I like to think I go for the same amount of time with everyone. Some people I just clicked with more, so the interview was longer. Some people not so much, so it's shorter. But I think I got the best out of everyone that I could. And it's tough when you interview people. But in a situation like this, to use your time frame as a way to say, look at how important I am. I got this amount of time versus this person who got this amount of time. The time frame doesn't matter. It's not about who gets the biggest interview. This is supposed to be about the story of Colleen doing sick, disgusting shit and people referencing what had happened to them as evidence and bringing proof and facts in order to make sure that this person is brought to light and that something substantial happens to her. Saying that you are more important because you got this amount of time versus somebody who got this amount of time. What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, who says, how do you look at somebody and have the audacity to to go to other sites to say, well, you only got well, according to this, an hour 45 minutes, but that's not the point. You got 45 minutes. Well, that you obviously your story is not more important than mine. No victim thinks like this. A matter of fact, it's hard for people to talk about this shit. So the fact you could be so cavalier and so petty, and you have the audacity to already try to humiliate people who are dealing with humiliation and being in the public spotlight and being hit 50 times a day with people wanting to talk to them, that's just gross. That is so. I feel like I have to take a shower. That's disgusting. This is one of the worst things I've heard of people doing. I've heard this happens, but I've never had contact in a story where someone has blatantly done something like this. And it gets worse from what she's saying, but this is pretty bad within itself. This alone already questions the validity of every statement he's ever made about this topic and this situation. And there might be grains of truth in there, but now you're disavowing all of your thing because you're making it look like you're full of shit and you just want fame. You just want the clout. This isn't about you helping people and trying to bond with the victims and you're all working things out to get over it. This is about you trying to elevate yourself over other people. This within itself is an abusive thing to do. It's kind of staggering and in a sense mind-boggling, the just the depravity of this whole thing. Planet Q's Queen says this gives me same vibes as Safe Chuck and Robinson and the MJ staff right now and Leaving Neverland mockumentary. Yes, I agree. Courtney's Fellowship says there's a sense of triangulation, maybe. Do you agree? I mean, yeah, they were all. Yeah, I do. Just one angle. Yeah. and that she said maybe groomed him this way. I don't think that just questioning. Yeah, I mean, there is a sense, and according to some things coming out, Johnny participated in some of the humiliating, or at the very least, didn't say anything. That's been established. Hey, Generation Productions, good to see you. Welcome. Uh, there is a sense that there is more to his story, Oddball. And I would agree with you. I think there is a sense of his own type of manipulation, his own game he's playing here. Hey, Jane Creek, good to see you here. Welcome. We are talking about someone who might be just as bad, if not worse, than Colleen herself. So strap up. I'm gonna do this most likely for an hour of this interview, and then I'll probably break this up and do a part 2 and part 3, because this is a long video, and it'll be a lot to get through in one sitting. But we're gonna kind of react together to Johnny and these new things in Swoop's new documentary. By the way, I've said this several times, but if you're just coming in, you don't know who Swoop is, check the links in the description below, where you can go check out her awesome channel and subscribe. She does a lot of documentary kinds of things, exposing a lot of truly bad individuals, and she's very thorough in her research. So if you like that kind of stuff, go check out her channel. Anyways, let's continue. This is very disturbing.
And thank you for sharing that with me. I have been feeling like Johnny has been trying to manipulate me, gaslight me, weaponize me to the point where it has made me feel like I've been brought into this story when I was never supposed to be a part of this story, just someone from the outside offering my platform to help amplify your stories if you wanted me to. That's the only intention that I've ever had here. I hope people will notice Johnny pretty immediately after went and tweeted that he had a 6-hour interview with me. I didn't like it. I didn't comment on it. I didn't retweet it. And that was for a very specific reason, because number one, I felt like him saying hours was going to try to stir up some narrative that somehow his story is more important. I've never felt that way. To feel like I've been weaponized against you, the other victims, makes me absolutely sick.
And let me just read this comment because I definitely agree. I agree. There is more to his story. I have so many speculations as to why he could be this way. I need to know more to form an opinion. Yeah, and we're going to break this down. Don't worry. I'm going to dive deep into this because there is some things she's going to lay out and talk about. There's definitely going to be some deep diving into this, and I've kind of been off this topic for a bit because nothing new broke that I felt needed to be brought up. But this is a pretty huge revelation, and this really goes back to Colleen in a sense, uh, a bit satirical. Yes. Uh, this goes back to Colleen in a sense because Colleen has cultivated this kind of mentality. And I said this before in my other Colleen videos. She's created a victim culture, and I think, in a sense, created more of a grooming culture too, with the things with her brother, with even her ex and her current husband. There's accusations there. Everything surrounding Colleen has created this nasty vacuum of victims, groomers, and it expands outward. And it's really quite disturbing because this is not a person who is small. I mean, even if it was, it'd be disturbing. But I'm saying this is a well known person who has gone through and affected and quite possibly created uh, just negativity all the way around. And I think a lot of this does go back to Colleen as well, too. I think that if Johnny is still somehow involved in all of this, she has created people in her inner circle to do nasty things. Her little fucking sidekick has gone on slandering people and staying by Colleen's side. She has really fostered this protective layer of people who have, in their own right, participated in nasty acts towards these victims. And like I said, it's creating a batch of victims, and now maybe even creating future groomers, which is a fucking scary concept. And one person has set all of this into motion. And that's why I'm saying the focus doesn't just shift off of Colleen, because she's at the center of all of this. It just spider webs out into all of these different things, but it all comes back to the same point. It comes back to the same source. And that's Colleen created this culture, maybe unwillingly or possibly willingly, maybe knowingly, maybe unknowingly. She has created this. And now we are seeing the repercussions of everything that she started. And I wholeheartedly believe that. This all starts with her. She is the focal point, and it just kind of spreads out into all these other avenues, to all these other people. And I think there is so much more that is going to be revealed. And I think that with people like Swoop and stuff, keeping the attention on her is the most important thing, because Johnny had innocence at a point. These people who do this nasty shit, and her little sidekick there, I forget his name, idiot who always follows her, they all started off not being this way. She manipulated these people into doing the things that they do. Now, everybody has choice and free will, especially Johnny, especially now. I'm not taking the blame off of him, but I'm saying she set into motion all of these events. She is the architect of creating all of these people, or at the very least giving them a platform to do this sick shit. And that's what it comes down to. At the end of the day, I still hold Colleen solely responsible. I mean, she needs to have repercussions for this. Yes, that's what I speculate about her. She has many flying monkeys. Yeah, I agree. That's a very apt statement. Generation Production says, indeed, when bad behavior goes unchecked, it creates more people with that bad behavior. Spot on, Generation Production, spot on. When you foster this environment, and this is proven in social studies, right? And I don't mean like history, social studies. Well, kind of, yes. When you create this kind of environment, for instance, I lived in New York, okay? And I've seen places where drugs and gangs and things affected that neighborhood. And people got caught in a perpetual cycle of violence, drugs, and things like that, because that was all that was around that area. Now, if they had been removed from that area, like I chose to remove myself, could they have gotten a better life? Maybe. That's where it comes down to the individual. But at the end of the day, the circumstances and the catalyst caused the effects that rippled out and touched and affected lives around me. Half of my friends are either dead or in jail. Now, it's not to say the person didn't have a choice, but the options weren't presented to them. They had very limited resources, right? So if we put this into Colleen, when you are surrounded by a powerful figure who's got this wealth, this money, this life, and you see how they've been benefited towards that, when they lead you into these directions, you're going to take their lead. You're going to respect them. You're going to put them on a pedestal like so many people did. And they created that. They could have used that power to help people, to create people who would donate to charities, help out other people, help teach these kids to be better and teach them values. But instead, she took it into an opposite direction for comedy and created this atmosphere. And now we're seeing the seeds that she sowed sprout. And this is what's happening. And it's kind of very disturbing that one person can create so much chaos. I mean, we've seen it with Amber Heard, the divide there. I mean, Alec Baldwin, Ezra Miller, all of these people, they think of themselves as they don't have an effect on anyone, when that's the furthest from the truth. They have the most responsibility and the most effect on their audience and on impressionable minds. Yeah, and I talked about this. Cults. Papa Cotton put it great. It is. It's a cult mentality. It really is, Papa. Hollywood in general, I always see as a cult mentality. It's the rich, narcissistic pricks that want you to see their viewpoints. They want to be right. They want you to agree with them. And it's no different than how these narcissists see themselves. It's just like my series says. It's pure narcissism. That's the best way to put it. And it's me, me, me. And they don't give a shit about who they hurt and step over and crush to get to the position they want to be in. Yeah, exactly, Papa. That's what it is. Says wild oats, man, wild oats. Yeah, I agree. This could fit into my cult documentary, which, by the way, I am working on a section about Scientology, and my third part to the cult documentary is going to be on the Catholic Church. That should be an interesting one to make. But anyways, I'm going to Jared Leto. I don't know. I don't get. I'm not as hard on Jared Leto as a lot of other people. But Evan Rachel Woods, Melissa Schumer. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of them we could point to.
That interview went for 6 hours because Johnny talked in so many circles, insulted times, and it was the most I've ever done. I believe that Johnny thinks that he manipulated me enough that he got away with it. Based on the testimony and evidence that Adam has provided me, on top of the verified paper trail of lies, deceit, and his disgusting display of victim shaming to my face, he is hurting real people. He's hurting me. And based on this with Adam, I can safely say that by the end of this documentary, all of you are going to have a clear picture imaginable of who Johnny Silvestri really is. Now, the thing is, I've been talking to Johnny Silvestri and collecting interviews with him as far back as mid-June 2023. I've regrettably spent more time interviewing Johnny than anyone else on the planet has. I had an hour and 4 minutes of audio from 2 Twitter interviews and apparently an infamous 6-hour Zoom interview. Combine that with the phone call, the messages sent, the very public support I gave Johnny, even in light of messages I did not agree with, like referring to racism, ableism, and homophobia as bullshit. That's a smaller issue. That's just icing on the cake. Even in light of his past racist apologist posts that he's made that we don't even have time to cover. I can't stress enough just.
So that's a whole new wrinkle to everything. I gotta say, as far as this goes, what I've been finding out with Colleen and the rest of the people involved in this kind of circle of fucked up people doing fucked up things is that they all seem to have this like racism, classism mentality. It's actually quite amazing to me. And I don't mean like speculated racism, okay? I don't mean like, oh, because you don't watch this movie, you're clearly racist or sexist. We're not talking about this. We're talking about Colleen said, verified in front of the person who used to work with her on her show. They had to shoot in this market, which was a small bodega kind of store, ran by an Asian couple. Okay, because I'm trying not to stir up the people who might perceive whatever I say as racist, because we're in a very sensitive time. Anyways, that's not the point. So she made a statement about get this Chinese shit out of here. I don't even think they were Chinese. That's what made it even funnier. and showed her blatant either naivety or just outright racism. And there's a couple of little things that she's done that's very questionable, but it seems to me that it's not so much these people are racist as much as they don't see everybody else as equal to them. And that transcends sex, race. It's to me, it's beyond that. It's they don't see themselves on the same level as other people, is what I gather from it. And I could be totally off base, but they see themselves as above everybody else. So really race and sex doesn't enter into the equation. It's they are the center of the universe and everyone else is just orbiting them. That's how I see it, because really think about it, right? It has nothing to do with the race or sex. It's just I'm better than you just because I am who I am. I don't see it as really a personal thing. Like, yes, everybody has their bias. There might be a part of them that doesn't like a specific individual group of people. I wholeheartedly believe that, but I think it's more than that. I think on a psychological level, it's more than someone's race or sex. It's them as a person, seeing them above other individuals. And it does not matter who or what they are. It is that they are the center of attention. They need to be focused on. They don't give a shit who you are. You need to know about them. That's how I interpret that. Maybe I could be wrong. I don't know. You guys can let me know. But that's how I picture it in my mind, is that they do not care about anybody else. So yeah, it's Johnny has that look. I can almost imagine him in rage state without seeing it. Yeah, yeah. He's got a very intense kind of questionable thing going on. I don't know.
How many attempts I have made to support Johnny. So to start this off, I think it's time to quote something Johnny once said about his best friend of 10 years, Tim Connolly, a massive creep who has also been accused of some truly heinous things. And you know what? I'm going to swap Tim's name out for Johnny. So, Johnny Silvestri, I saw you were begging for the attention and you're in luck because I have a lot of eyes on me right now. I decided to do something kind and give you what you've been asking for. It's been a long time coming. I just need to say this directly from the beginning. During our investigation, we discovered the very real possibility that Johnny Silvestri doctored evidence, and he may have done it intentionally to manipulate the narrative. This discovery shocked me. It is one of the reasons that I went quiet on social media. I know a lot of you noticed, and it derailed my entire upload schedule, which isn't fair to you who love the content, and it's not fair to me and my platform. Early on, I directly asked Joshua David Evans himself to provide me with full receipts of his Twitter DM history with Johnny Silvestri, fully prepared to believe that if someone was going to delete DMs out of the two of them, it would probably be Josh, right? Wrong. Now, full transparency, Joshua.
Here's where this gets interesting, and this is about as far as I got. So, this is interesting because we've all seen this, and I don't know how many times I have to say this. When you do something on the internet, it is on there forever. Um, and it's the same thing that gets all of these people caught, is that you can delete it on your end, but on the internet, in emails, in direct messages, things like that, there is always a trail. Like, look, I don't know how many times I have to say this. This happened to Ezra Miller, Alec Baldwin. All of these people should stay the fuck off of social media, because I don't think you realize that you might delete something on your end, but other people still receive the message. It is out there forever. Unless they deleted it too and scrubbed everything, there will always be a trail leading back to what you said. And this really proves how just narcissistic a person is, because you think you're untouchable. You think there's no account, there's no records, and you couldn't be wrong. People want to find stuff, they'll find it. It's not gone forever, as they say. It used to be that way, but not anymore. Not with online. Everybody can find everything. He said, I like how she switched his projection. Yeah, this is kind of crazy.
David Evans had DM'd me right after part 1 of my series dropped. It was unsolicited. I had no plans of reaching out to him at the time, and I know that he has done some sketchy shit, and believe me, we are going to address it. But as is standard practice for an investigation, I've been in communication with Joshua to see if he has evidence to corroborate his own claims. But before I even did that, in my continual efforts to support Johnny at the time, I informed Johnny that Josh had reached out and that I would be speaking with him. And I told Johnny on Twitter, Instagram, and in our interview. There might be a road where I speak with Joshua to try to get to the truth. If there was anything that you specifically would want either me to ask Josh or if you wanted to ask him right now on camera.
Yeah, and I appreciate that so much. I mean, you even mentioned the other day if I had any questions I had for him, like what would they be? When I sat and thought about it, nothing.
I didn't have to tell Johnny, but I did. And so when I asked Josh for his Twitter DM history with Johnny, he sent me a screen recording from top to bottom of 20 total DMs between 2012 and 2016 when they had stopped speaking. 14 of those messages were from Johnny to Joshua, and the remaining 6 messages were replies from Joshua answering 2 of Johnny's questions, meaning Joshua only ever answered Johnny twice in 4 years. Once to a public question Johnny asked him on Twitter, and the other to a question about a show that Joshua was playing. The entire exchange also began with Johnny initiating the conversation by telling Joshua that he was depressed and in need of guidance back in December of 2012, which was very upsetting and sad to see. I never want to see somebody depressed. Now, Joshua did not respond, which is not at all what I expected after talking to Johnny for 6 hours about this. I was expecting to see like tons of just back and forth message exchanges since Johnny said that they had a tight-knit relationship. Can you tell me about how many times you would estimate that you hung out with Josh in person?
He would say stuff to me like, oh my God, come to California for my show. And I'd be like, are you serious? He'd be like, yeah, come on down. And I'd be like, whoa, sick. You can ask anybody. He would be like, oh yeah, me and Johnny, we're going to take over the world. We're going to make it big together someday. This guy is so cool and so selfless. Like, what a good person.
So, just to give context, and from the sounds of it, this to me comes off as somebody who wanted to be acknowledged but was not being acknowledged. Now, if the implication is correct here, this would reframe everything as the fact that he responded twice to pretty benign questions. And, you know, Joshua has his own kind of scandal going on, as Swoop said. And that doesn't absolve him from the other claims that have been yet to be disproved. But in this one particular instance, this feels to me of somebody wanting more. They want to initiate the exchange, and this person is ignoring them, which really brings into light the claims of now you yourself being groomed. It appears to me that he is upset because he wanted something out of this that he was not getting. And if that is the case, that becomes a whole different another issue, because now it's a thing of you going after this person specifically with the intent on hurting them. And here's the thing about Johnny's claims that I never thought about until this came out and she started highlighting these things, is that it's never targeted at a lot of the majority of these accusations and things coming out. They're towards Colleen and the whole Ballinger family in general. There's no one specific person. Colleen is at the center. It's pretty much her, but It's a wide variety of people involved, but he is specifically targeting one individual, very, very laser focused, which kind of brings up a question of, okay, why this person? And the more it's getting illuminated, it seems more of wanting a friendship the person didn't want to reciprocate back. And that's my own just bare bones take. And don't worry, I'm passionate about this topic too. I think people should be passionate about this. This is a very serious thing. And thank you. I noticed we've had 10 or so people watching. I appreciate everybody here. If you do like this, do the YouTube things, like the video, all that jazz. And I'd like to thank my sponsors who hopefully aren't being taken aback by this, but moviepalette.com. Thank you very much. Go check them out at moviepalette.com, and if you put in the promo code, which is in the description, Zone 15, you can save 50% off of all of your purchases. I know for a fact because I did it myself. So I just came in as a normal customer to see if the promo code worked. It does in fact work. So if you want to get a great movie palette of a Nick Cage movie, which I suggest doing, I have it in my shrine. Go check them out. But yeah, it is really crazy to see the way this stuff has gone out. So yeah, this is really disturbing. And thank you, Gotti, for that. I appreciate it. This is, to me, this is the worst thing for somebody to do. Besides, oh my God, Johnny's he's just digging such a big hole here. Besides weaponizing an interview that's supposed to be highlighting victims of a horrendous act performed by this woman, but besides taking the spotlight off of actual people who were victimized and trying to put yourself on a pedestal that you're better than them, but on top of all this, now it appears to be a vendetta against somebody who wouldn't give you attention. And once again, this brings me back to my point of the narcissism, right? They are not being focused on. So now he is coming after this person, which has ramifications because yes, maybe this person deserves to have some kind of justice done to them, but when it is fabricated lies, that is not justice. That is not evidence. It's not proof. It diminishes the real proof. The real justice that needs to happen gets hindered, and it makes people question validity of claims that are actually true and proven by fact, and you are now diminishing the very real victims of this story. And if I sound pissed off, it's because I am. Because Adam McIntyre was a child when he was manipulated and used by Colleen Ballinger. These were not adults, and not that it would be right. I'm not saying that. But these were children who were still growing and developing and learning. They still have life ahead of them. And now forever they have to live with interviews and people digging up this story and their life being shifted and their lives never being the same because you want to claim to be a victim and you want to put yourself on a pedestal and downplay and diminish the horrendous things that have happened to these kids. It is disgusting. And nobody should ever do that. Everybody should be treated with an equal amount of compassion, dignity, and respect. No one person's story is worse than another. It should never have happened to anybody. And if this is a vendetta to specifically get back at a person because they didn't pay attention to you, then that is fucking disgusting. It is disgusting. It's vile, it's nasty, and it's really disturbing. So Chromo said, no problem. Oh, okay, that was answered. Somebody else. Thank you for the movie promo. Strudelvein. I need. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, it's a smear campaign. I agree. It's disgusting. This is very much a disgusting thing to do to people. I'm just gonna continue.
Johnny has accused Joshua of grooming and being a predator worse than Colleen. Those are serious f***ing allegations.
Is
They
Josh
are.
someone that you would turn to with personal things like your sex?
Yeah.
And then you guys started texting like on a one-on-one basis.
Not super regularly, because I didn't want to use it. I didn't want to lose this privilege, because they like gave you little things, but they would kind of hold it over your head, even if they didn't.
Now, and here's the thing about his statements. I'm sorry to pause this again because this really agitates me. Hello, Bitchy Unicorn. If you guys don't know, that's my beautiful future wife, Bitchy, in the chat. Everybody show her some love. But anyways, the thing that disgusts me about this is that, especially with people who are narcissistic like this, they twist the truth and they mix truth in with lies, because the best lie is the lie you don't know whether it's true or not, right? They take facts, but they're taking it from other people's stories and they're mixing it into their own story to give it validity. So if anyone checks into it, it is true. It happened to someone, just not them. Just not them. They are hitching their story onto somebody else's story. They're taking their experience and to me, that is fucking disgusting. To use somebody else's story, and we've seen Amber do this too. This is very reminiscent of Amber Heard, textbook Amber Heard manipulation 101, right? She took other people's story and made it her own with no proof, granted. And this is where it gets murky, because there is elements of truth in there. There is things that's happened. He's just twisted it around to benefit his own version of events. And I can't put into words how wrong that is. I can't. There's no way to articulate off of a raw reaction. I'd have to think about it and get into that headspace of being super pissed. But I'm more shocked that you would do this to people who are kids. If you are a victim, then you should have just as much compassion and understand where people are coming from. To me, if you don't have that, then I don't know how you can claim or understand to be a victim, because you don't understand exactly what they're going through. It's, man, you can get deeply into the psychology of it all. It's really disgusting. That's the best word I got. It's disgusting.
Didn't say it to your face.
Now, Johnny did say the majority of their relationship was held publicly over Twitter, not privately, so we needed to look beyond the DMs.
How often did you talk? I guess I'm just more curious of the dynamic between you two.
It was more so like Twitter based. It was more of a public relationship.
But because Johnny most of his old tweets and he admitted that to us, this is hard to fully investigate. Except if you search for correspondence between @JoshuaDTown and Johnny's old username @JohnnySilvestri, you can find that virtually every interaction between the two of them began with Johnny tweeting at Josh and Josh responding. That even in a public setting, Joshua was rarely initiating contact. Now, as we know in the definition of grooming, I've covered it many times, isolation is one of the key tactics a groomer will use to isolate their victims from their support system. It's very much what one man who groomed and sexually abused me did. He told me my family would me if I said anything, and it worked because I stayed silent for him for so long. So I fully anticipated that we would be seeing private instances of Josh attempting to isolate Johnny. In reality, there was so much lack of response from Josh. We became suspicious that Josh must have deleted a lot of his old DMs to distort what happened. There was basically like no other explanation to us, except Johnny had told me in the interview that he was an open book.
Yeah, I'm an open book.
So in a phone call, I asked Johnny to send me the same backlog of Twitter DMs that Joshua had already sent without telling Johnny that Joshua had already sent a copy. Neither of them knew about the other, to keep it clean, and I'm sure they're both realizing this right now as they see this. Now, Johnny hesitated at first. Joshua did not. And Johnny asked me what exactly I was looking for, which I thought was odd. And I said that I wanted to see if Joshua said anything inappropriate in those messages. Johnny said, okay, and we ended the call. Then he texted me something weird. He said, can I see DMs if I blocked someone? Now, he already knew the answer to this, so we felt like he was maybe buying time or thinking of a reason why he couldn't send them. That was followed by, wait, never mind, and a few minutes later, he sent screenshots. But when I received them, multiple DMs were actually missing on that wait, never mind that he texted me. We believe that's the moment that he realized he could manipulate the messages. Allegedly. We believe that based on this information that Johnny Silvestri likely deleted most of his own messages, significantly altering his actual conversations with Josh, making it look like Josh was highly engaged in DMing him, when in fact, most of the time, it was Johnny sending messages with no reply. This is something that Johnny has chosen not to share with the public. Why? Now, for those deleting messages only deletes them as they show on your side, but they'll still show up on the other person's side. So I'm going to put them on screen so that you can see full transparency here. All we had to do is put Johnny's version of the DMs side by side with Josh's version and go down the line and see if something was missing. Messages were only missing on Johnny's side. Now, keep in mind, when you look at these, the blue and gray messages are reversed for each of the other phones. So the first message missing was on December 27th, 2012, where Johnny said, quote, Josh, how did you get through your high school years? I feel like I'm falling apart. There is just too much stress and I'm so depressed. And that tracks with Johnny saying that he was on the verge of dropping out of high school, and Joshua telling me that he spoke to Johnny because he thought Johnny was sad and he wanted to be an internet big brother figure.
I eventually switched schools.
So very interesting. It kind of highlights my theory, which is that I believe he had some kind of connection. Maybe he saw things more than what they were, and Joshua was just trying to help a kid who was going through a rough time, which you can't fault for that. Now, in my mind, I have taught martial arts, and I've talked to younger students. All right, I've had contact with students who were former students or whatever else, but people always knew I was talking to them, and I've said this before, and I do believe there could be a sort of mentorship and trying to help someone through a difficult time, especially if you're apathetic or empathetic, or you have empathy towards their situation. I can understand this person who's quite bigger that sees this kid who works closely with at their time, well, now their ex-wife, right? And they want to try to help this kid out. And, for all of the other accusations that he does have leveled towards him that might be actually true, in this case, it seems more of a mentoring type of thing. And that really sucks because if there is stuff that he did with Johnny playing this game that he has, well, now you got to look at the other accusations again and go, okay, was this somebody who was just infatuated with this person, or do they have a legitimate claim? And this is the reason why I don't like people who falsely claim shit that isn't true, because then it forces people to reevaluate the whole situation. And someone might have done something actually serious and seriously manipulated someone, but then you have to throw it all out because of the fact of one person who basically screwed up the evidence and facts for everybody else. And this is why stuff like this is so delicate, it's sensitive, and it's got to be treated with responsibility and intelligence and integrity, because when you make a claim, when you do something like this, you're not talking about allegations like someone jaywalked or someone did something like this and that. You're talking about abuse. You're talking about grooming. You're talking about things that are career ending, life altering kind of accusations. These are very serious. When you level something at this, you better be 100% correct, and you better have your proof and your ducks in a row, and you better be genuine and sincere, because if not, you could let a potential monster loose because you wanted all the fame and glory, and you wanted to pursue someone who wasn't interested. And that is that's very bad. That's very bad, because now this taints and pollutes all of the other stuff that is involved with this. You know, if this is not true, this now reframes everything. And people who have legitimate claims, who are legitimately hurt by this person's actions, could now go without seeing any justice because one person decided to fucking lie and manipulate facts. It's wrong.
Schools a few times, but it led to things getting worse and worse and worse, to the point where I really didn't have much other choice than to drop out my sophomore year of high school.
But by Johnny leaving out that message, as well as the one that followed, it makes it look like Joshua was the first one to reach out here when it was actually Johnny. Changes the narrative. Then as we scroll down on Joshua's messages, we get them to line up with the November 30th, 2013 text from Josh. Now, this DM is a response to Johnny asking Josh if he was going to be working at the next Chicago Auto Show, and Josh was explaining that he was not. The next DMs from January 2014 were not altered. Johnny says that he was going to surprise Josh at a show in Minnesota, but didn't have the address. Josh sent it and commented, "You're going? Woo!" Now, it's important to note that Johnny lived in Illinois and wanted to drive 9 hours to surprise a man that he seemingly hardly knew on Twitter. Now, there are even more missing messages spanning over a year, starting in 2014, where Johnny tried asking Joshua for some YouTube advice, which went unanswered by Joshua. A message from Johnny asking if Josh wanted to hang out after their show. Joshua does not answer. Now, it was a Miranda Sings show at the Rialto Square Theater in Joliet, Illinois. And then Johnny DM'd of the following. December 9th, 2014. "Hey, can I tell you something?" No response from Joshua. This message is missing from Johnny's screenshots. A month later, in January 2015, quote, "To talk to you." Again, no response from Joshua, but missing in Johnny's screenshots. Now, the next one is in Johnny's screenshots, dated March 16th, 2015. "Hey, I need to talk to you ASAP." And again, Joshua did not respond. I have tried to rationalize every excuse to explain this, but it appears to me that Johnny Silvestri deleted messages in an attempt to manipulate the narrative and lie to me in the process. Why? And how did we end up in a position where Joshua David Evans, of all people, was able to pull an Adam McIntyre, painstakingly scrolling through giving me more transparency than it looks like Johnny has, a person who has accused this man of grooming to national news outlets, massive podcasts, and web shows?
Two things. Number one, I just don't get it, because for better or for worse, I've almost put too much information out there, and I'm not trying to make this about me. I'm trying to add context here. When I've made my videos, I have literally scrolled through DMs. Like, I've opened that on my thing and I've scrolled through, and I'm like reading out when, like,
Yeah, it's very interesting and also very odd that there would be a gap. And to me, if you're picking and choosing what messages you want to show, it does kind of lay out context as if this person realized that the person they were talking to was a minor, and they were just trying to have a kind of mentor thing. And Johnny was, in fact, initiating more of the messages, in a sense, more pursuing that kind of friendship, relationship, whatever you want to call it. Now, without having context of these live shows and stuff like that, it does make you wonder what was said behind the scenes that seemingly seems like a red flag to Joshua, where he just stopped talking to him, because by the looks of it, he just ended the conversations. And the bigger question is why? And why would he cut out these other texts that were sent to him if the context was, oh, he was saying all this stuff in public? Well, then showing those other messages to me just highlights, oh, I really wanted to talk to him and he wasn't talking to me. I would think that would add more credibility. But when you start deleting stuff, it then recontextualizes the whole conversation to why are you deleting stuff? Why are you deleting that half of the conversation? What is it in there that you don't want people to see? Is it because you look desperate? Like you look like you're trying to follow this person? Like, is it something personal, or is it that you are trying to give more credibility to your side of the story? And that if people look at these messages, they're going to question whether or not he was doing the right thing, or you were, in fact, pursuing something that wasn't there. That's what it comes down, for me, that's what it comes down to. I feel like he is trying to go after him for a slight of some kind that nobody knows about. But that's just my theory. I don't know if it's true or not.
I didn't respond to Colleen, or Colleen didn't respond to me, or like really boring texts that had no context, because I was like, I'm gonna force you all to sit here and read it all, and you can sift through what you want rather than having to like beg for information. I mean, you're getting sent literally like edited screenshots, or with like stuff like that, and then Josh is sending them, and it's showing that it was probably the way YouTubers responded to fans. I'm not excuse me, I'm talking about messages and then a response, or messages and a response. The fact that I have been getting so much criticism for not platforming Johnny's Joshua things, and I have been begging for information from Johnny, and to know that that's what it is to me is so crazy to me.
I really do not like being lied to, especially when I'm trying to share compassion, team, and my platform with you to amplify your story, especially when it comes from a place where I accused Joshua to try to trick me. But you, Johnny, betrayed my trust at the highest level here, and betrayed my team, who have devoted countless hours, sleepless nights, their own mental, to try to help you. Why? Now, another red flag that faced my team was Johnny telling me directly that he didn't have any of his old text messages with Joshua, after having already sent me a screenshot of a text that literally showed he had at least some of his messages with Joshua. Do you still have, I'm just curious, do you still have your text conversations with Josh? And he gave me an answer that was dodgy. He always seems to be dodgy with details about Josh.
That I can check, because my old MacBook Pro revived itself. If I move it a little bit, it shuts off completely, and I have to move quick, all segments. So I really wanted to get the choline information, the meat and potatoes.
For someone who dated Josh was worse than Colleen, referring to texts from Colleen as the meat and potatoes is odd. And after performing an exhaustive analysis of key evidence, not only do we believe Johnny has likely deleted DMs, but we believe he is actively withholding text message exchanges with Joshua Evans in an attempt to further falsify a narrative later on.
So that is pretty that's pretty nuts, pretty underhanded. Trying to just sit here and backtrack and here's the thing. It's one thing to drag someone through the mud because there is something you have to say, they did something shady, and you are presenting evidence. And in fact, they did that to themselves. It's another thing to try to destroy someone's reputation and it's just not true. And like I said, there might be more proof of other people and other alleged stories where this was the case and he was trying to talk to them and isolate them or whatever else. But when you do stuff like this, that downplays the real narrative that is going on. And like I said, I strongly believe in Colleen's circles. All of them have baggage and shit in their closet. Like everybody that I've seen in this story has done something shady and messed up. But this person went through their own stuff with Colleen as well. In a sense, they were a victim caught up in their whirlwind of bullshit themselves, too. They went through an abusive, toxic relationship themselves. And they lost their relationship because of it. Now, to have somebody come and put your name out there and say you did something that you didn't, and then try to make it as if your story is more relevant than everyone else's, that's just crazy to me. And I agree with that question. Why? Why are you doing this? What is the end game? I guess is the bigger question here that really shocked me when I came across this is what is his end game? Because everybody's got a motive, everybody's got something they're driving to. Is it fame? Is it popularity? Is it a platform? I mean, he had quite a few followers before this. So, I mean, you were on tour with Miranda Sings. By proxy, you gain a sort of following. So, what is the motive? What is the reasoning for this particular laser target focus, this campaign against this one individual, and why lie about it? And this lie is quite serious. This is something that has reached like literally national news and national coverage. I'm not talking about just the YouTube space. This is like Vanity Fair, New York Times, Post, all of that stuff. This is new. This is big news. This is like a real deal story. And if any of these journalists or any of these syndications or anybody who is sympathizing, and there are people who do sympathize with Colleen, get a hold of this, this can be used as a way to discredit everybody else. This could be used as a way to get Colleen out of this shitty situation she put herself in. Because then journalists, being the way they are in this age, will try to twist this and turn this into a, well, how do we know everybody else is telling the truth? This could just be a smear campaign, right? And then we're back to square one, all because of one person's lie. And that's the thing that really bugs me about this whole situation. It's domino effect.
Johnny's always been an interesting person in this story because he's been an adult for the majority of it. The root of his allegations, however, began during his time with Colleen Ballinger fandom when he was a teen.
I saw these usernames that were like, I love Colleen B, random people under her tweets. It introduced to fandom, which I was like, people create human beings, and I can kind of hide and be a little bit anonymous where no one has to know who I am except for my friends I create online. Sign me up. I was a super fan.
Now, Johnny 4th, 1996, 27 years old as his one-on-one time with Colleen Ballinger happened was an adult. The story about Colleen saying she was going to write a script about a fan faking an illness just to meet her. Johnny alleges he overheard that while he was on tour with Colleen as an adult and claims that it was about Ella. The screenshots of Trisha Paytas's nudes being sent over text, Johnny shared those, and he was an adult at the time, unlike Adam, who allegedly also received photos when he was an innocent minor, making what Colleen allegedly did to Adam a criminal act. Now, unlike everyone talked to, Johnny Silvestri has been a central part of each phase of this story. He was an early teen fan of Colleen's. He was regularly in chat rooms with Colleen. As an adult, Johnny was Colleen's employee and part of the live show crew, which means that he was also part of and in close proximity to the rotten core at the center of this story. He was so ingrained in the culture that he was listed in the special thanks on that Miranda Sings Netflix special. Johnny
True story. I did review that. He is, in fact, in the credits for that show. Netflix does not alter anything ever, for better or for worse. So it's quite crazy that, yes, if you go into the Netflix thing, just skip to the end of the special, you will see his name as under the special thanks, which is odd within itself because a lot of other people on this crew, there's only a couple of people actually mentioned in that. So that's the other shocking part to this whole thing, is that he could be the one instrumental to really adding a sort of adding validity to these claims because he was there. He was close proximity to all of the big people. But now, with this coming out about him making some certain parts of this story up in order to boost his own ego, he not only hurts the chances of actually something happening to him, but it disavows anything that might be true that he says. And that's another shame part about this whole thing. By lying, now everybody has to question everything that's said. And now, even if you're telling the truth about something, which might be beneficial, which might actually help strengthen a case against Colleen, well, now anybody, if this does go to court, can rip his testimony to shreds. If someone on YouTube can dig into this and find out where your narrative is falling apart, then a good attorney could easily discredit your statement. And that really hurts a defense trying to get justice done for this. And I'm saying, not to say that this will go to court or anything, but if it does, well, now you're missing someone who could be a key witness, all because they want to have their own fame. They want to be in the spotlight. It's a shame. It's a real shame.
himself even partook in some of the bullying of underage fans, including Adam, something Johnny admitted to me.
I remember it was around starting to see this Adam kid pop up. So he was getting this access to Colleen Ballinger and all of us online by going parents' notes. We, as a 15, 16-year-old, I didn't want to be talking to a 9 or 10-year-old. So we just kind of picked on him for being so young. And I say bully because hand on my heart, I was involved in mean stuff.
Was short-lived because 2 or so minutes later, he then flipped that he didn't partake in bullying Adam.
But when it comes to Adam, when me and him on the phone for the first time last month, he felt like I was invested in the bullying.
So I asked Adam about it.
My thing about that is so complex and it's so bizarre. And there's so much of that like doesn't get told when it happens. So the actual truth of that is has said many, many, many times in interviews, journals, that him and his friends would do these tiny chat calls and they would quote unquote bully me by not letting me join the chat room with Colleen and stuff.
If he wanted to be a part of the tiny chats, we never gave him for it. And then we kick him out and be like, no.
That's if we link up the dates, I wasn't a part of the fandom at that stage. He has said and he was a generation before me in the fandom. So I don't know why people aren't piecing two and two together. Like, it was completely different eras. And my thing with Johnny was completely separate to Tiny Chat. Him and his friend group were like the OG Colleen fans, right? And they would have these calls with Colleen. I ever, from my recollection, of course, like a 10-year-old, was never a part of those. And Johnny has spoken about this multiple times, being like, we would let him join the video chat and we would like kind of bully him by ostracizing him. Say that we would bully him by like saying he was weird, video calls and stuff. And I'm like, these dates don't line up. And Johnny has said this so many times where he would bully Adam. And I take full accountability for that.
And I say bully because hand on my heart, I was involved in mean stuff. I mean, I won't say I'm not.
It's like he's taking accountability for things that he's making up, especially whenever my opinion of John was always that Johnny was the mean girl. Johnny was the one who wanted everyone to think that he was Colleen's best friend and stuff. And he was about me behind the scenes on Twitter, like where I would hear that he was saying like shady remarks about me trying to be the next Johnny was something that I vividly remember. And like a couple of members of the Weenies and I have like spoken about this where he would say that and he'd be like, oh, I'm trying so desperately and stuff.
Even when me and him spoke on the phone for the first time last month, he even said he really didn't feel like I was invested in the bullying.
My thing with Johnny, we're speaking about the bullying thing, was only that Johnny himself was rude about me and felt intimidated by me, literally a child. In that era, like it would have literally been like end of 2015, 16, 17, 18 when he was doing Bust Her.
And an adult man saying those things about a little child.
I particularly believe that Johnny is making up stories about him bullying me, fabricating them, and then saying, I take accountability for doing these things. And then I'm like, okay, I don't remember that. The dates don't link up. Is this making this story up? And he told me this privately on FaceTime.
And here's another weird thing. Taking, okay. There's so many layers to this shit. So, taking accountability is a good thing. But creating a false narrative and then taking accountability for the false narrative is some 3D chess I'm not understanding. Once again, I don't understand what the end game is here. If you do something to someone and you say, you know what, I was wrong, this person was younger than me, whatever, I bullied them, cool. I mean, it doesn't excuse you from the act, but at least you are owning up to that. But why not take accountability for the things you actually did? Like what you said on Twitter that someone remembers and make stuff up that never happened to apologize for. It's very odd. It's a weird it's a very weird thing to do, and I do apologize if my audio is off. I don't know what's going on with my audio settings here. You know, God, I love the duck so much. Let me see here. I'm just gonna try to tune this a little bit better here. Let's see, bring it down to. All right, hopefully that helps a bit. Oh, the video? Okay. Well, I have no clue what's up with that. I'm just streaming it through there. I don't know if it's because if it's my internet that's messing it up. Very well could be. Um, you know, I don't want to name the people there because they see me and they're like, oh my god, you know, wage war on these people. It could be very well be my internet. But yeah, I think it's weird to create a narrative that doesn't exist and then take accountability for it. Why? There's a lot of whys here. What is your motive? What is your Are you trying to deflect from the stuff you actually did? is that your roundabout way of apologizing? Or is this some kind of 3D chess with an end game? Because all of this is very strange behavior. It makes absolutely no sense. Like, not in the sense of even taking the blame off yourself, because you are taking a fake accountability. I don't get what the end game is. Like, good God, man, what is your plan? I think the biggest question for me is, besides the fame, besides the clearly the narcissism going on with Johnny himself, the bigger question is, what is the goal? What is the end game? What are you driving towards? Why are you involved in this? And you clearly do have things you can say, but you're trying to manipulate it in a way where I think maybe it's more of him trying to put all of the spotlight on him by embellishing facts and creating things that never happened, for people to kind of get this empathetic, like, oh, well, he did all these things, but at least he apologized. At least he reached out and said he was sorry, right? Because people who are following this are listening through third-party sources, or they're watching the news, they're reading the articles, they're listening to their favorite YouTuber. Hopefully that is me. If it is, click that like button, hit the share button, all the YouTube things. Anyways, shameless plug over, right? If they're getting their sources from other people, right, and someone hasn't covered this, maybe it's you're winning people over to your side. But it's a really weird roundabout way to go if that's your goal. If that, I guess the really confusing thing for me right now is, what is your end game? What do you want to accomplish from this? Good God, man. What is your motive? Because clearly you're not out to help the victims. You don't give a shit about them, right? You don't care about the other people involved. So is this about you? Do you have this bad interaction where you feel like you got slighted, so now you want people to notice you and how hurt you are? Is it Joshua didn't give him the attention he wanted, so now he wants this attention that these other people rightfully should have? Like, everybody involved should have their moment to say their piece. But it feels like to me he wants all of it. He wants to distance everybody out of this and just be solely focused on. And he's the one who's been the most willing to go on interviews and things like that, because a lot of people who are victims have a hard time sharing their stories. It's not an easy thing to do. So the willingness is another sort of red flag to me, because, like, the way you dive head first into this, the way you try to get all of this focused on you, it's not coming to me as someone who has legitimately gone through what you're claiming. And it's just my initial take off of the way this is presenting itself.
As well, he said that during that era, Colleen used to bully me to them, which was the thing that hit me hardest on the FaceTime call to him. Those dates would have been before I met her for the first time. I would literally have been like 9 years old. Colleen had no idea.
And just focusing back on Colleen, Jesus Christ, he was 9 or 10 years old. So just to highlight this, because this isn't about Colleen, but just to show, like, how important this whole thing is and what Johnny is doing is very detrimental here. This was a 9-year-old, 10-year-old kid talking to, at the time she was in her, like, late 20s, early 30s. Like, this is the kind of audience that she had. And the dimensions to this story are very important to discuss. And his actions towards a kid within themselves is very weird, very questionable. The thing of even feeling threatened by a 9 or 10-year-old kid, there's some other layers to this whole thing. that's really kind of disturbing. Like, I understand being threatened if you're working and there's other adults and you're competing for a spot in this crew. But Adam was just kind of in this group. He was talking with Colleen. They had these other interactions, but he wasn't a part of their tour thing. So I don't understand his weird fascination with trying to use him as a way to manipulate, like he did all of these things, but then he didn't. It's weird. It's really weird. It's a very weird thing to do. I do not understand what your end game is, sir.
Idea who I was, and the dates don't link up, but he's saying that she was bullying me in their group chats. We believe that what he was trying to do was trying to push me down more, being like, okay, you thought Colleen was making fun of you? Well, actually, before you even became a fan, she was bullying you to us, and I was doing it as well. But I take accountability, but she doesn't. And it kind of felt like he was giving me more information about Colleen on this FaceTime call to hype me up, because it was right before I was about to make one of my relationship with Colleen Ballinger videos. The reason he wanted me to make that video so much was because he told me that he was going to create one right after it about Josh, which, by the way, does not take anything away from my video. I believe what he was doing was telling me things that were not true, involving him and Colleen in it, saying that he takes accountability. But he was like, but Colleen hasn't, so I can't be angry at him, but I can be angry at Colleen.
Again, this is all very interesting to me because in the interview with me, he didn't say Colleen was bullying you at that time. He said that she was actually swooping in to be like, no, Adam's great. He's, he's so cute.
That's not true.
And he said that she was bringing you in and bringing you access. And so that's very directly opposite of what you're saying actually happened.
And you'd be like, ew, a kid. And then
So, and this is the other thing that is, really, really, just mind-boggling here, is that, if you are in a 6-hour interview and you're bragging about that, why would you say two very contradictory statements, right? Why would you say that to Adam and hype him up and be like, oh yeah, she was totally bullying you, but then on the other end, you get on an interview with somebody who has a lot of people who's going to watch this docuseries, and you directly try to, in a way, make Colleen look like she was, in fact, trying to help him out. Like, this is a very weird game of chess you're playing here. Like, I don't understand. Once again, I will say, what is the point? What's the end game you're looking for here? What are you looking to get out of this? Is it by him releasing a video, then you releasing a video, you boost each other's things? Like, is this a monetary thing? I'm very confused by what the end game is to playing these different facets. Or is this trying to throw fuel on the fire? Is this trying to create more of a conflict where he can come in and be the center of attention? Because, as I said, he strikes me as narcissistic, and by him attaching himself to other people and their videos and things like that, he is keeping himself in the limelight while keeping this story going, so that people are still all eyes on him, right? There's still people talking about it. They'll watch Adam's video, they go watch Johnny's video. It'll keep it in the public's mind, which is very concerning.
kick him out and be like, no. And then she'd swoop into his and be like, hey, Adam, hey, bestie. Which is, and it's so bad. Because like, maybe we could have protected Adam a little bit if we did befriend him.
That's not true. That is not true. He told me a couple weeks ago on FaceTime that was when she started bullying me in it. And they had to tell her. He told, I swear to living Jesus Christ, oh my God, this is so annoying. On this call, he told me that it was Colleen making fun of me in this group chat, and it was Johnny and this other friend that were the ones that defended me and said that I was just a young kid which was the reason then he told me that Colleen felt comfortable enough to continue talking to me, because it was Johnny that made Colleen think that I was still a good one, and it was Colleen that didn't like me and find me annoying from the get-go. This is so...
Wow. He had 6 hours to tell me the truth, and he told me very different things. I can't underscore enough how important it is that we all understand that this 27-year-old man appears to have targeted a 20-year-old Adam and manipulated him in a one-on-one isolated FaceTime video call for the purposes of inciting Adam to make more content about Colleen so that Johnny could ride his coattails and make content about Joshua. And we believe he chose Joshua as the subject because that's the one thing that is not part of Adam's story, and no one could fact check him on it until now. Back in 2020, when Adam was just 17 years old and first came forward with his heartbreaking story and faced ruthless bullying as a result, Johnny, an adult, was very publicly supportive of Colleen Ballinger, Adam's abuser, and continued supporting Colleen during the time she was creating racist content and exploiting kids, even after his employment ended. You had mentioned something about that you had gone to one of Colleen's shows a couple of months ago. And I believe you said something along the lines of to salvage the relationship. And I wonder if you could kind of explain to me, walk me through what was happening with you, that you went to the show.
So I wouldn't say I went to salvage anything.
Like I said, still up until recently, I had just gone to a Miranda show 2 months ago. I was still attempting to salvage any relationship that was left.
So I wouldn't say I went to salvage anything. I didn't expect it to go great. That experience was just stupid. It was horrible.
He basically knew what a toxic environment it was, but for whatever reason still supported Colleen and traveled to a show as recently as this year. Hell, I mean, he even kept the backstage pass.
Well, I just found my backstage pass on the 21st of January.
Now, when my team and I were going back through the 6-hour interview, the first thing we noticed is that John has a tendency to change his story in troubling ways, sometimes at the drop of a dime and sometimes within minutes. And we're not the only ones who noticed this. When you mentioned that you had asked him for information or context or details about something, was that specifically just about his claims, his allegations against Joshua, or were there other instances that you were trying to get receipts or information that he just was not forthcoming with?
Like, it was very general on FaceTime. It was that call, and it all literally stemmed from me trying to offer sympathy, because I was like, shit, I've been, doing this for 3 years. Like, let me tell you, I'm the veteran of this. Like, if you want any, it honestly started like...
So, in a sense, and just so I can kind of contextualize what's going on here, we all heard the definition of grooming earlier, right? And now the very unsettling thing about this is when Johnny was talking to Adam about these things, right? He was in fact employing a technique that groomers use. He was manipulating someone into doing something to benefit off of them. He was manipulating the situation. He was manipulating the other victims into turning onto each other by making a claim about having a 6-hour interview that apparently nobody else got. It's very weird because the question becomes, why are you doing this? And if we are battling against the allegations of grooming and the person you're trying to take down is doing these things that we all know about and we've seen the proof and the evidence for, right? These are very specific tactics that Colleen herself was using. And now Johnny here is using these very same manipulation tactics into coercing other people to do stuff so that he himself can benefit off of what they're doing. And this raises a question now of stop, hold on, what is your involvement in this, right? For me, it makes me say, you are doing the exact same thing you are claiming was done to you. If you know that this was a trick, this was something that was done, why are you doing it to other people? Like, it's very weird. Lotus Dragonstorm, hello. How are you doing? New to the chat. I don't believe I've seen that name before. But anyways, uh, it's very weird to me that somebody who has had this happen to them, that has had these things done to them, would employ the same tactics. And it makes me kind of wonder, what is your actual role in this? Like, what were you doing before this? And I think we're going to get some answers that are going to be very shocking, because this is very, very weird. Narcissist project, what they do upon others. It's a tactic they use. Whatever a narcissist accuses you of is an admission of guilt. I agree with that. I do agree with that statement. It is very true. It's almost as a deflection from their own guilt, right? They are deflecting their own truth, their own role, by trying to manipulate information, by trying to distort facts, and essentially take the spotlight off of them onto the other people. But here is the oddest thing of it all, is that you were never spotlighted, right? He interjected himself into this, and granted, he was right next to Miranda, Colleen. Sorry, I go by a stupid Miranda Sings character. You were in a position to actually help these victims out, but instead, now you have manipulated the victims themselves into bringing this up to position yourself into a position to get spotlight. Now, part of it could be fame, recognition. Part of it could be even more insidious. I don't know. It's very weird to me. It's a very weird tactic to employ, especially if you're claiming you were victimized like this. I would think you would not want to employ the same kind of tactics and techniques to other people and continue to manipulate this situation for these people who are victims of this and who have gone through these terrible things. It's very mind-boggling to me. It makes no sense.
Like that. It wasn't even an interrogation or wanting proof. It was like, what has happened to you that you want like an opinion on, with messaging. Anytime I would say that, it would always be, oh, well, I have screenshots and like they're going to do really well on Twitter. And that would kind of be the extent of our conversations to do with Colleen or Josh. Anytime I would try to find things like, the conversation would shift to like what Twitter would respond well to, rather than like what you actually want to talk about.
Now, to show you what I mean, here's a clip from him from my Twitter interview talking about Trent Ballinger.
Trent Ballinger. The reason I've personally known that Trent Ballinger has been an issue for so long is because I was groomed by him. And honestly, it took Oliver's story to kind of wake me up from that situation as well.
This was further backed up by a tweet Johnny made on June 17th when he explicitly calls himself a victim of Trent's. Now, here's him discussing Trent Ballinger on July 9th within the 6-hour train ride we went on.
With Trent, I feel like our conversations were inappropriate in the sense that he was talking to an underage child, but I don't personally feel like Trent really crossed any boundaries with me.
And followed that by saying this.
With Trent, I had a weird dynamic. With Corey, I didn't like him. I'm not sure if he liked me, but I wouldn't consider myself as a groomed victim by either of those people.
So in one interview, he accuses Trent of being his groomer. In another, he says Trent did not groom him. Both of these statements cannot be true at the same time. And we thought, well, maybe, his opinion is evolving. But the trouble with that is that Johnny accused a man of grooming him on the record. And later, when he said he didn't groom him, he didn't retract his previous allegations. So it starts to feel like he's just throwing the word grooming around, which does a huge disservice to victims of grooming. And if my team hadn't clocked this inconsistency and aired his Twitter interview, people would hear Johnny openly accusing Trent of grooming him when he didn't.
Trent Ballinger.
So Generation Productions says, well, it seems that Josh is trying to manipulate to take the spotlight off of himself to reflect more on Colleen. Hell, he might even be more involved with that stuff, suggesting some ideas to Colleen, or even may not have challenged her, thus feeling guilty. Yeah, I agree. There is definitely a sense that there is something he is hiding, that to alleviate his guilt, he's trying to throw all of the blame onto it. And I do think that fame and views and things also factor into this, because this is blown up so big that I think it's a sense of wanting to blame all of these people / wanting to see what plays to an audience, and just trying to mine this for all the recognition and credit that you can get, which is a dangerous thing. As I stated, this is some serious accusations, and this is not something that should be taken lightly. This is not something you just throw around. This is life altering, like career ending. This is serious stuff. To take something like this and try to manipulate the situation, even if it is for your own gain, which in itself is pretty disturbing. But to try to take this and manipulate people who have already been manipulated is really shitty thing to do. It's really disturbing thing to do, because you have to remember too, these are people who have already been manipulated by Colleen herself. Now Johnny's sitting here in the guise of trying to bring the truth to light and help these people out, is creating all new issues of trust, and and doing more damage to people who are already trying to process and get past their emotional, psychological damages that they've already suffered. It's just throwing fuel on the fire. And that within itself is just as bad, if not worse, than the original stuff that's happening, because now you are reopening the wound, and you are in fact causing more trauma for these people who are just bringing this up to try to get past it. It's really terrible. It's a horrible thing to do.
I was groomed by him.
I wouldn't consider myself as a groomed victim by either of those people.
And it honestly makes a series of tweets that Johnny made referring to Trent being the only Ballinger to text him after the accusations went public look a whole lot stranger, since Johnny literally tells Trent, quote, "The good memories will always remain the same," followed by a heart emoji.
But Johnny had told me that he was good friends with Trent only until a few weeks ago. He told me he really liked Trent. He was telling me behind the scenes that he really liked Trent. And this was whenever he was publicly supporting Oliver as well.
So let me see here. Dragonstorm says, if he is a grandiose narcissist, his false self overinflated ego will easily project his ills upon others, creating negative fuel, what narcissists live off of. He knows what he's doing. And I agree with that statement. I do believe he knows what he's doing. And I do believe there is an element here of that feeling of having a platform to speak. It's really fascinating in a sense of how he is sitting here yet again being another person manipulating and twisting this situation. And as I said, this is why I have chosen to do this. No gimmicks, no nothing. This is me doing this, and this hits really hard because these are people who need justice, who need people to take their stories seriously. And when you have an asshole like this who is um, trying to get clout and fame and recognition off of other people's tragedy and manipulating and changing context to things, it's a very dangerous thing. And it skewers and it dilutes the actual truth of the matter. This is the type of stuff that helps people who need to see justice, who needs to see consequences. This is the thing that gets them off. Because in our justice system, right, you have to create reasonable doubt. And these are the things that creates a reasonable doubt in people's minds when this stuff comes to light. This is why it's so important to be careful with things like this. And being grossly irresponsible, even if it is for the sake of gaining that 5 minutes of fame, right? You are still hurting other people who have real life emotional issues and traumas and things they want to bring to the public because they want to see this person punished for crimes they should be punished for. It's a very dangerous game, and it's very ignorant and irresponsible.
But the biggest examples of Johnny's story drastically changing happens in how Johnny characterizes his relationship with Joshua to me. The most basic way that I can explain adult Johnny Silvestri's story is that when he was 16, his family took a vacation to New York City to see a Miranda Singh show because Johnny was a super fan, and he approached Colleen to autograph a paper crown that he had received for participating in the show.
It was just a little family vacation we decided to go on and kind of revolve around this trip because I had been speaking to all of my friends and Colleen and Joshua and the whole family for about a year virtually. And she never did shows in Illinois. So it was either you go to New York for one or you go to LA.
The reason Josh is so crucial, Joshua David Evans, her ex-husband, is so crucial to my story is because I was not one of the close ones to Colleen at first.
Now, according to Johnny, Joshua swooped in and signed it unsolicited, then secretly wrote his phone number and said something like, use this if you need it. And Johnny was confused. Here's how he told the story on the Do We Know Them podcast.
New York, I'm 16, get this phone number and this crown that I'm given, right? He writes his signature on it after I had won it from being a part of the show, and then he opens it up and writes something in the inside and hands it to me and says, here, use this anytime. Kind of just gives me like a nod of affirmation. And I'm like, fuck? And I open
And
it
he's
I'm like,
familiar with who you are because you and
Tiny
Colleen
Chat,
had...
Tiny Chat, Twitter.
Oh, yes, of course, from Tiny.
Yeah, I texted him that night and I just said, hey, like, thank you so much for giving me this phone number. And I let him essentially know that I will be respectful of it and only use it if I need. And he sent me something back like, don't worry about it. You're like a little bro to me. If you have any questions about the industry or you ever like want to work on some projects, hit me up.
And here's how he told that same story to me the first time during our voice notes interview.
And Josh really swooped in and scooped me up. He wrote his phone number on a little paper crown that I had gotten as a prize to be on stage at the show that night. And after he signed it, he opened it up unprovoked and he wrote his phone number.
And here's how he told that story to me in our Zoom interview. When he had given you his phone number, what was that like?
At the time, it was very surreal. I remember him handing me back the crown. I feel like I remember him saying something like, use this whenever you feel like you need to, or something like that. And my attention that night on diverted over to Josh. I was more of a Josh fan than a Colleen Miranda fan. I was still heavily involved in the fandom, but Josh gave me so much attention that Colleen didn't really give me. So I felt like, hey, if I could at least be closer to him since I'm not super close to her.
Do you remember what the conversation was that you were having with him right before he put his number in a crown?
They were just signing the crown. We were all about to leave. That's around the moment I'm pretty sure Colleen said something about queefing. And my dad was like, "What did she just say?" And I was like, "Oh my God, I have Joshua's phone number." Really hope my dad didn't just hear Colleen say queef.
Okay, and
So
I guess I didn't realize that that your parents were, or at least your dad was there with you at the time that he was writing his phone number in the crown.
yeah,
Okay, let's just stop right here and address the elephant in the room. Something that Johnny has conveniently buried the lead on in every retelling of the story imaginable. Johnny Silvestri's parents were right next to him when he got this phone number from Joshua. Yeah, I'm more clear. I guess I don't know how I missed it that your family was there. Did
Yes.
your parents, did they know that he had given you his number?
He gave me the crown, gave me that little nod of affirmation. My first initial response was, I don't want the other people to see that I just got this phone number, because then everybody's gonna flock and try to get it from me or like steal this crown. And
Now, I noticed that I had to ask Johnny multiple times about his parents being there and witnessing this because he would continuously steer the conversation away from that. So I asked once more, when did your parents learn that you had got his phone number?
I like held it close and I like double checked to like make sure. And I think I even like showed my parents and stuff. And I think in their minds they were just like, holy shit, like our kid's doing the damn thing. Okay, so maybe school didn't work out for him, but like maybe he's meant for something. Maybe he's gonna do something. Maybe Josh can be a mentor.
His parents were proud of him for receiving this phone number. Why?
Our kid's doing the damn thing. Okay.
So Johnny was an inspiring YouTuber. Joshua David Evans was a bigger YouTuber. His wife was a massive YouTuber and someone Johnny idolized so much that he literally dressed up as her for Halloween. But it was this networking, endorsed by Johnny's parents, that, according to Johnny, led to a friendship where Joshua allegedly promised Johnny great success in the YouTube world, which Johnny has characterized to me multiple times, again, as his meal ticket to stardom.
This was my ticket to success, my ticket to happiness. No one could take it away from me.
Now, was it appropriate for Joshua to give his phone number to a teen? No. There's a lot of context here that changes Johnny's story. Johnny has gone on the record many times talking about how his parents were supportive of his YouTube ambitions and would fly him out to shows across the country to see Colleen and Joshua and often attend with him. In Johnny's own words, his parents have been supportive of all of this, including him receiving Joshua David Evans' phone number. And given what we know now about Joshua receiving messages of Johnny being a sad, lost kid, Johnny.
So that is interesting. First off, gosh. Okay, so an adult giving a kid a number, that's sketchy within itself. But giving the context of that with the parents knowing, and for me that says more about the parents, but that's probably a topic for another day because I've got a lot of issues with the whole Colleen thing, and parents blatantly ignore what that crazy bitch is saying in her shows. But anyways, that's not really the talk. I might do a separate stream on that. But they knew he had the number, and by all accounts he initiated the conversation, and her ex-husband, in all accounts, pretty much just talked to him as you would talk to a fan you were mentoring. Now, it's not to say it's not weird within itself. Like, as an adult, just chatting with a kid is that strikes me as weird. But inherently, if there is nothing really, I don't know how to put it, nefarious in the seemingly innocuous texting that was going on, right? It was very straightforward, to the point, answering questions. Then to me, why lie and say several different versions? And this is the thing that people who are narcissists, hey, Rebecca, how are you? Good to see you. This is a thing that a lot of these narcissistic people don't realize. When you do an interview so many times, if your story is not true, it is going to change and someone will recognize it. And doing a 6-hour interview, I felt like a lot of things that maybe he didn't want to say just came out. And bits of the truth of the situation were coming out. So once again, this raises the question to A, what was Joshua's actual relationship with Johnny. Was this a one-sided thing? Was he pursuing something that Joshua was not trying to pursue or saw different in his mind? In which case, does it border on weird being friends with a kid? I instructed numerous students. Granted, everyone I talked to, their parents know about. They were there. Even if I had a kid's number, they had an issue, I would talk to them. The parents were aware. I don't see anything wrong with that aspect. You are trying to mentor and help a child along who might not be comfortable with talking to someone else about an issue that maybe you can help them out with. That's totally like the student teacher thing is totally different. Now, a random stranger opting for that's a little bit weird, but I could see someone seeing this person who is a YouTuber and they have aspirations and kind of going like, hey, this kid's in a rough spot. Let me see if I can help them out. Try to get some good karma. But manipulating that information is weird. Why would your story change? Why does it like? Well, I see why. It changes the context if his parents are standing right there because now they are aware that this person who's a grown ass man gave their child his number. And clearly, if they don't see it as a problem, then it isn't presented in a way that's dubious or suspicious. And then if you add into the text that we went over earlier, you start to see a clearer picture that his story is not lining up with how he's portraying it. He's portraying it as someone who was groomed and manipulated and told all of these falsehoods. But for me, and seeing all these texts and getting full context, it appears this man never promised anything outside of just being someone to be able to talk to if times were tough. And that adds a whole different context to everything. And it brings into question everything else that is being said. It's really quite disheartening to people who have legitimate complaints about what Colleen has done to them and her very clear manipulation and gross sexual innuendos to minors and things like that. To my knowledge, I have yet to see a text of this man doing it. So again, I ask Johnny, what the fuck is your end game? If you are a victim, right, you should have more concrete evidence against this man, something explicit and decent, something he's said or done that is the smoking gun. But here, this is all innocuous statements. These are all things that seem like, hey, how you doing? What's up? Yeah, I know, you're depressed. That sucks. It's nothing really damning like Colleen has. Colleen has clear, blatant, fuck, read her book or see her live show. She clearly over-sexualized children. There's clear evidence. It's on fucking Netflix. Like, this is all proven. But this contact, this relationship seems nothing more than a person trying to reach out to someone who's having a rough time in their life and trying to genuinely help them. And if that's the case, then why are you trying to destroy this man? Is it because he wasn't giving you the attention you wanted to because it's fucking weird to talk to a minor as an adult? And if so, that does not make him wrong in this particular situation. That's actually quite a smart move. That's what any person in a situation like that would do who's not a total weirdo, right? How many people in this chat who are older are friends with kids? Like the furthest you have is like, hey, what's up? Treating people with respect. If you're in the service industry, saying hey or oh, that's a cute kid, stuff like that. This does not ring any alarm bells. So once again, the question is why? What is the end game? What's the goal here? What is your point in all of this? And he says narcissists are impulsive. They are addicted to positive/negative fuel. They will sprinkle in truth in around lies, which I mentioned earlier. He may have been getting a feeling of power by the parents being there. That's even disturbing for someone his age. Yeah. Narcissists feel no control over themselves, which is why they focus on controlling, destroying others. Some narcs are also sex addicts and depraved. Yeah, it's it's a very it bleeds into a lot of different things here, and it's a very disturbing turn of events. Now, I'm about an hour into this, which is where I kind of wanted to leave things off because this is almost a 4 hour documentary, which I will probably have to break into parts because I spent 2 hours just on the first hour of this. But it's really because I want to inject my own reactions into this because, like I said, I'm watching this with you guys for the first time. It's uh, my live reaction to hearing some of this and me disseminating the information as I am literally hearing it, which I think is important because you guys should hear my response. I always found it weird people who do reactions scripted. It was like, oh, I'm gonna watch this video and react to it after I've seen it, and I have time to plan out my reaction. No, like if I find something hard to say, it's because I'm trying to process what I'm watching at the time. And if I had some time to think about it, I'd be more articulate and able to be more focused and concise with what I'm trying to bring across as a point. But in my head, it's just like, wow, because this is a person who was very much embedded in this conversation. This person has been in the forefront of all of these allegations, as Swoop has stated. And in my next video, I'm going to go into the second hour of this interview and continue on. And hopefully, I don't do a lot of these reaction kind of videos. I don't know. I always found it weird trying to muster up a genuine response. It's why I only do a few trailer reactions and things like that. If I come to you guys with this kind of stuff, I want to have a real genuine response to what I'm seeing on screen. And wow, this first hour was quite illuminating, and this isn't even getting into the other allegations that are forming around him with a grooming ring and everything else, which I'm sure is probably in the third hour or so. This is only the first hour and giving context and laying a foundation of lies, a breadcrumb of lies and deceit and betrayal. I think it's good to have the full context of the story to understand just how nefarious this whole thing is. Um, Thank you. I really appreciate it, Dragonstorm. You know, I shared this stream on my narcissistic abuse awareness channel. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Me doing this is about getting out the message, and let's not forget. Number one, do not harass, bully, blah, blah, blah. We're all adults here. You guys know the deal. Don't be a fucking asshole. Like, people who are involved in the things I talk about, they'll get what's coming to them. I strongly believe that. When people start trying to take matters into their own hands, they don't help the victims in those situations. They make things worse because then they can claim being bullied and harassed by fans of a person and stuff, and it creates an ugly an ugly situation. So don't be that person. I actually make a joke. I made a mistake, and the Bagel Consortium came after me. True story. I said one negative thing about a bagel. I did not know the bagel community was a thing. I kid you not. It's a real thing. Do not mess with the bagel community. They are a real thing. I did not even realize there was a community of bagel lovers. It's true. I got so much hate on a video about that. Um, but I guess people like what they like. But the point is that this stuff is very real, and this struck me as super important because this is the kind of thing that abusers will use to minimize the actual victims of these horrendous things that have happened to them, and we can't ever lose focus on the real tragedies of this story. We can't ever forget that this was a woman who used her platform to manipulate and mass groom a large amount of people. That people endorsed this woman for years and gave her a platform to spread really nasty, disgusting things across she had millions of followers, shows, tours, things like that. You can't lose focus, but it is important. Hey, Sean Bean, it's okay. Internet has issues. Narcissists are demons. They are evil. I do believe that people, like all of the biggest narcissists in Landis Dragonstorm, you can check out my narcissist playlist and my other coverage of like Alec Baldwin and stuff. Um, they do they do have these tendencies to do extremely bad things, and I believe you can be narcissistic and seek help and battle that kind of impulse. And then there's people who don't even try. And these are the people that go on and affect other people's lives. And they need to be called out. There needs to be accountability for their actions. Colleen needs to have accountability and not just a slap on the wrist. Like, honestly, I think she should be deplatformed off of YouTube, to be quite honest with you. I think she should be taken off of this platform. That's my honest opinion. It's not saying it should happen or it could happen. I'm just saying my own personal opinion is she should be taken off this platform for the shit she's done. It's not even a question of if she did it. It's how much evidence is against her. It's like, how much new shit are we going to find every day? It's not even a question of if she's guilty at this point. And Johnny doing this is just driving this ability for Colleen to slip out of these things and to shift focus to stupid bullshit that doesn't matter. This needs to be tackled and discussed and properly handled. And when you do not, then you are at danger of minimalizing and trivializing the actual real victims and their real stories. Johnny is hurting other people's accounts. And I think that at the very least, this should be a wake up call and force him to scale back what he's saying, because it's a very dangerous game. And it's going to create a narrative for Colleen to use that, oh, obviously these claims aren't true because look at what this person did, right? And then we got to play that game. And then it turns into a he said, she said, and people forget what the actual point is. They overlook the actual evidence. And that's when you got these people that are going to skate past and not get the justice that they deserve. And it's disheartening because YouTubers like myself, we're not getting paid to do this. Some of them are, but I'm not. No one's getting paid for this coverage, right? You know, this is to help the victims. If we ever lose sight of that, then we've lost the message and what's important. And I think it's really important to make sure that no other child is abused like this again, that no other child is victimized by these people. If that falls apart because of one person, then that's a shame. It's tragedy. It really is. So, yeah, you got to keep those receipts. I agree. I 100% agree. And Colleen has a lot of receipts on her. Keep those receipts. Narcissists hate being exposed. The truth is the bane of all liars, and that is true. It's very important. At General Spencer, you know, there is a change.org position to get her off of YouTube. But yeah, I've heard. I think that YouTube themselves need to take responsibility. I've seen so many people get removed. I've had a video censored because bitchy shoulder to shoulder. True story. My video was like taken down for a bit until I cut out that part. But yet this woman has talked about inappropriate things to minors, and she still got her channel up with like millions of followers. It makes no sense. It's fucking ridiculous. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. I'm going to be bringing part 2. I'll probably do it tomorrow because I have to work, so I'll probably do it sometime during the day before I go in. I will bring you part 2 of this expose and talking about Johnny Silvestri and the deep dark secrets that he's harboring, and really exposing the lies, because we need to get bad actors out of this situation, and we need to focus on the people that matter, Adam McIntyre and all of the other victims of this story who have real claims, who really need to be heard, and not focus on people like Johnny, who is just manipulating and exploiting this situation for his own personal gain. It's disgusting. He should be ashamed. And I would encourage you guys to go check out Swoops' channel, go check out her docu-series on this as well. I have all of the links in the description below to Twitter, Instagram, their store, and her channel. So you guys can go check out, because she has comprehensively laid out all of this evidence and put in a lot of work. And I feel like reacting to somebody's video, I should give them the credit they deserve, because she put a lot of work into this. So, you know, shout out to that channel. And I think she's doing amazing coverage, very in-depth, very thorough. And it's a shame that she was used in a way to try to hurt what the story is about. And I respect the hell out of her for going back through and doing her due diligence to kind of clear up the situation and bring light to something that might be just as bad as Colleen. I think it speaks a lot to her character. So thank you everybody for watching. I'm not going to say my normal catchphrases and things like that. Like I said, this is a serious thing. This is like a from the heart kind of a thing. I take these subjects very seriously. Me and PB and everyone on the late night crew will joke about Hollywood shenanigans. It doesn't affect us, but this is a very real world thing for me. I have a daughter. She could have been in this situation. There's people I know here in the chat and other people who might have kids and things like that. And for me, this is a very serious topic. It's something that should be approached with the utmost respect. And I really appreciate you guys for listening to me for almost past 2.5 hours as we break this down, because it's super important and it needs to be said. So thank you, everybody. And I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Join me tomorrow. I will be doing part 2. I don't know what time yet. I'm going to probably try to do it around noon and hopefully get an hour done. But I'm going to be breaking this up into pieces. So you can check my narcissistic playlist. I also have a Rise of Nexium, which I talk about cult mentalities. I will be adding to that. I am actually working on currently my part 2 for that, which is going to be on Scientology. So I'm going to gather the information that I have and present a deep dive look into the Church of Scientology and why it is the scariest organization so far that exists, and the dangers of Scientology. I'm going to be diving into that, and it's a really big project. I've been working on this for I think like a year now. I've been working on this. I may have Books by Jay with me to really dive into Scientology and the Church of Scientology, its history and everything else. I will also be looking at the Catholic Church, Catholicism, whatever. Yeah. And kind of the way they've perpetuated narratives throughout history. And I'm going to do a deep dive into that, because my cult series is really a cult mentality. And these are all aspects of things that are manipulated to use and abuse people. And I really want to kind of make an all-encompassing thing like that, of bringing awareness to these different apparatuses that are very instrumental and can be very harmful to people. So thank you very much. Everybody have a wonderful evening, and you'll take care. Thank you for watching.